So, today I wanted to talk a little bit about how to deal with a mountains environment in human design. So, if this is your environment, if you're a mountain environment, please listen up. I have a very important thing to share with you all. So, you know how when it comes to human design environments, we think that it's sort of like a metaphor. For example, people with kitchen environment, they like to be in a place with a lot of like-minded people. They like to be creative, so it's sort of like a kitchen but metaphorically, where you create, where there's a lot of things going on, a lot of happenings. So a lot of people do misunderstand. It's not just a metaphor, it's a literal thing. If you are a mountains environment, you're most likely gonna feel amplified. You're gonna feel like you come alive once you're really up, high up on the mountain. So, what do I mean practically? So, practically, you should live in a high rise floor. You should live in a high rise building if you can afford it. If you live in a city, if you don't live in a city, you should live somewhere secluded and a bit high up than the other houses in the village, in the town. That's also a possibility. It doesn't have to be a literal urban environment. That would most likely be important if you're an active mountains environment, and I'm going to talk about that sometimes later. But for now, you need to understand it's not just a metaphor. You literally need to be high up on the mountain. And that applies to anything. So, yeah, that's a very common tip. Like, you should live in a high rise building, you should live up on the highest floor you can afford. But another thing that a lot of people miss is that you should do most of your activities somewhere high up because it would amplify your activities. So, what do I mean? I mean, you should work ideally your office, your studio, your whatever you do, you should aspire to be in spaces which are high up. Doesn't mean this space is posh. No, it just means it happens not on the ground. So you wouldn't be like, it's literally so funny because you would be a better saleswoman if you would work on a higher floor. But if you would work on the ground, like you work in a car dealership and you work on the ground, that might not be a good fit for you. And you could think, oh, I'm not a good saleswoman. I'm not good at it, even though people told me I could be good at it. But once you move to a higher building, once you move to a higher office, maybe you still deal with cars or car insurance, you still sell to people, you're still a saleswoman, but you work on a high floor in a high rise building, then you would do better. You would just do better. Another thing, and I just spotted it. I just spotted it the other day, and that's why I said I'm gonna upload this now, because if I wouldn't, I would just forget this tip, and I know it applies to me. So I'm working out, okay? I'm working out, I'm doing Pilates, I'm doing yoga. I don't go to the gym so often because that's another topic, but that's what I do. So the thing that I've noticed time and time again, and I'm in mountains environment, that's why I'm saying it. The thing that works out best for me is that I should join, I should sign up to a gym, to a place, to a studio that's located in a high-rise building. So I've literally changed my gym. I've literally changed the place where I'm working out so I can take my yoga classes, and I literally see, can you see the thumbnail that I put up here? Like, not the thumbnail, the actual like frame, the photo that you're seeing. It's like an office, a nocturnal kind of landscape of city offices, right? That's literally what I see every time I work out, every time we do a yoga class. And it just amplifies my being, my sense of working out. It just amplifies it. And beforehand, believe me, I would go to classes, they would happen on the ground floor because there was another area of the town, and that's where they would put the Pilates studios, the yoga studios. And that just didn't work out for me. That just keeps me so like, that just like my soul is just suffering there, you know? It's not amplified. But once I move to this high rise gym, then I can just work out. I feel so different. So you really need to look into it. It also applies to dates. So if you are gonna date someone, so look, I'm a cis straight woman, so I'm gonna talk from my perspective, but this applies to anyone, any gender, any sexual orientation, all right? So if I wanted to have a really good date, ideally, I would take it somewhere high up. That's just that's just it. It again doesn't have to be posh. There are also like simple cafes that are somewhere where they have a balcony, and can overlook the city. That would just be better for me. That's how I get perspective. That's how I can meet the other person when I'm amplified, when I'm at my best. And of course, the other person also have they got their own perspective and environment and sort of thing. But if I'm thinking about myself, if once in a while I feel like, something in communication is not flowing as it should, so I'm gonna go ahead and look for places which are higher up. I'm gonna look for a cafe with a balcony. We can just take a, we know what? We can just take a hike somewhere in the city. Some cities have mountains in them. Let's just hike somewhere a bit higher up. Let's sit on a bench. Again, it doesn't have to be posh, but it's nice to, of course, also sit in a nicer place, because usually the places that are higher up are nicer places. That's how it works in the real estate world. That's what we've just accepted. And that's also something that mountain environment people should remember. Yes, you're supposed to be a bit detached from the rest of the people. You're a bit high up. It doesn't mean that you're better in the like sense of like, in the childish sense of it. But just means not everyone's gonna vibe with you. Not everybody's vibing with me. That's fine by me, because I have true friends wherever I go. I can make true friends. I'd rather have two, three, four true friends than, I don't know, like 50 acquaintances in my workplace, in my university, in my hometown. I don't need to know everybody. I don't need to feel like everyone likes me. I guess I'm just not, it's not what I look for. I look for honest people, and I also look for people who will amplify me. So these people tend to be more successful. They take maybe a more creative path in their lives. And that's okay, because I'm mountains environment, and they vibe with me because they also like my mountains environment sort of being my soul. So let's just accept our environment, because some people think, oh, mountains environment means I'm detached, means I'm gonna be lonely. No, I'm not lonely, but you know what? I live in a very big city, all right? I currently live in Tokyo. It's the biggest city ever. I think it's either the biggest or one of the three biggest cities in the world. It's a literal like urban like behemoth. Just never ends, okay? The thing is, look, I'm not gonna meet my friends every day, all right? Especially when I don't work with them currently, and when I don't have to go, so I'm not gonna meet with them every day. But you know what? I never feel lonely in a city, because I can take myself out of my room and I can just take a walk. I can even just take the train. The other day, again, mountains environment, so I was a bit detached the whole day, and I was doing stuff. I was working on my project, but I still felt detached. And what do I do is mountains environment? I need to change the vibe, all right? So, by the way, I can just take the bus. That's what I realized. I can just take the bus. I don't need to book anything. I don't need to buy anything. I was just taking a bus, and it cost like $1, right, to take the bus. A little less than one US dollar. So I took the bus, and bus also works better for me than going underground. I think it's also something that has to do with being mountains environment. I was taking the bus, and I was taking the bus all the way to the central station, okay, to the Tokyo Central Station. Once I got there, I would just take a stroll, and I just breathe in the whole kind of like high rise office buildings. I just breathe it in. Again, I'm not purchasing anything. I don't need to engage in this capitalist sort of like mind jail. I don't need to. I just need to breathe it in. I just need to understand this is me. This is my detachment. I'm breathing it in. I take inspiration from it, because you know what? I took the bus on the way to the central station. Was taking about, let's say, a little over half an hour of riding that. And then I just walked back home. It was a long walk, but I walked back home through this urban sprawl, looking at the high rise building, looking at the shops. The shops were closed, mind you, because this was kind of late. Things don't stay open unless it's a bar or a specific restaurant. So the shops will be closed, but I still breathe it in, because mountains environment, we also benefit a lot from looking at sort of like haute couture. So if I look at this Hermes store, if I look at the Dior store, the Miu Miu store, I just breathe it in. Dude, I don't need to buy it. I don't need to buy it. My ideas are far better. That might sound funny to you, but my ideas are far better. Okay, I'm also creative. I'm making my own creative products. I just breathe it in because it gives me inspiration, and because I'm mountain environment. And this haute couture, it's not like Uniqlo, all right? Hermes is not Uniqlo. Comme des Garçons, it's not Uniqlo. So I'd rather look at that really, really fancy stores. Sometimes I go, like Fifth Avenue in New York, Champs Elysees in Paris. So in Tokyo, that area would be called Omotesando. Okay, so if I go to Omotesando, I can just look at the fancy stores. I just look, what are they doing right now? What's going on? What's the color? What's the cut? What's the vibe? I just breathe it in and I understand something, all right? I'm studying art, so I understand something. I don't need to buy it. I literally don't want to buy it, dude. I don't want to buy it because next season this is gonna be outdated, okay? And it's not my style, but I just breathe it in. So I need to breathe in this high rise, high fashion, high food. You know what? Just go to the fanciest supermarket you can find around in your town or in the next town over. I don't care. Go to the supermarket and see what are they selling. You don't need to buy it. It's also a good exercise to not buy everything that just catches your eye. Don't buy it. Just see. For example, let's say the other day I was seeing that they are marketing a lot of different like tea products. So then I would go back home and you know what? I can make better tea because I bought some different herbs and I can make my own kind of potent tea. I can just brew it nicely with a few like words of affirmation. And that's better for me. I don't need this packaged tea with plastics that's overpriced. But I'm just taking inspiration in, okay? Let's say that this fancy high fashion store, this Japanese sort of like high fashion brand, they're showing right now kind of like this Prussian blue, okay, kind of like dresses, okay? I'm just taking in the color. I'm just thinking about blue, blue. What does blue remind me of? And I'm just thinking about that. And then I'm thinking of Picasso. And you know what? Picasso, I bet he was also a projector. He was a Scorpio. That's what I remember. But he was so much in his emotions that he literally defined, or to be exact, art historians defined a certain period of his work as the blue period, right? Because he would paint entire year or years just using sort of like shades of blue, and that symbolizes sadness. I think all of us know it, even if you didn't study art before or art theory, even if you're not into art, you just know when you see this blue, this is a sadness. And of course you can also see it by the characters and how they're so like, they sort of like hug themselves and everything is a bit broken. You feel it. But you know what? I also remember the other day that my Japanese friend told me we were at this photography exhibition, and she was telling me we were looking at this beautiful photo, and it wasn't blue like a Picasso kind of like sadness period blue, but it had a blue tint to it, okay? And then she told me, for us Japanese, blue tinted photographs or blue tinted films, it reminds us of ghosts. Wow, that just blew my mind. And let me tell you something. This friend, she went to this exhibition and she's Japanese. And look, I love my Japanese friends, but Japanese, they are like just that them. How much you think Americans are capitalist? Japanese are so many times over capitalist. Okay, so she just had to buy something in this exhibition, and that's so. For me, it's just funny because I can cherish this exhibition without actually purchasing something. But anyway, you know what I had to? I just had to take in. She said something very nuanced, something that gave some life to new inspiration inside of me. Like blue in Western society, maybe it's more sadness, but for Japanese people, it's more like ghost. And for me, as a mountains environment, and for all of you who are mountains environment, these sort of epiphanies, these sort of like deep, deep understandings, they're kind of like, it's very abstract. You can come up to me like, what are you gonna do with this information? Like, you're gonna just share it with us now over your YouTube or your TikTok or whatever, but what can you actually do with it? Look, I don't know what I'm actually gonna do with it, but it just gives me something, just inspires me, just amplifies my being, this sort of understanding. All right, so mountain environment, please, 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 for you, more than anyone, it can be very tempting to consume good stuff because we're tempted towards the high fashion thing, the sort of like high priced places. You don't need to consume it. You are a creator, okay? All right? You need to consume things as an inspiration. Think about mountains. What happens up on the mountains? On up high on the mountains, as you might know if you have ever studied biology or geography, that oxygen is a bit like there's less percent oxygen in the air, okay? It's harder to breathe. And what is inspiration? Inspiration comes from breathing, all right? Sorry, I don't remember the whole etymology sort of thing, but it's about breathing. So you need to breathe in, and breathing in doesn't mean you need to breathe everything, but you need to take in from every anytime you meet someone, anytime you meet a friend, you meet your partner, you meet a family member, think, what can I take from this call? What can I take from this conversation? What can I take from this meeting? What is the mountainous, high oxygen, like rare oxygen kind of thing I can take from this experience? Think about that. You need to be in high places with people physically and mentally, all right? You need to take inspiration from high and higher things, all right? So listen to smart people, listen to spiritual people. You can go on the internet, you can check on YouTube some Stanford lectures, all right? I was listening to this Stanford lecture the other day about human sexuality. Super interesting, dude. I don't know what I'm gonna do with it, okay? It's obviously not a kind of like educational thing that I can apply right away, but makes me understand something. Makes me understand. Yeah, so that's my tip for you for 2026 if you're a mountain environment person. Please don't just mindlessly consume. Please notice that you're taking in that all your friendships, all your connections, they give you something, okay? They benefit you, they give you inspiration. Please notice if you're struggling with something, if you're struggling with your gym, change your gym. Go somewhere higher up, okay? You need to see the mountains, you need to see the river from high up. You need to see the office buildings at night when you work out. You need to get it, okay? All right.